Losing a loved one is one of the most unsafe.
Yeah.
Because you sort of lose trust in life itself. And I go like, the day you sign the contract to live is the same day you sign the contract to die. I was still chief business officer of Google X, and so I used to actually dramatize the thought experiment and tell them, look, we have a technology at Google X that allows you to pinpoint an event in the past, and we erase it out of space-time as it never happened. We're gonna queue in line and one by one erase your painful memory, but by the way, it will erase everything that happened as a result. And you can literally see people going back to their seats saying, no, I don't want to erase it if that's the case. Most humans in the modern world know how to run the computer in their phone better than the computer in their head. Nobody ever taught us how to use that brain. What you use grows, what you don't shrinks. Think positive thoughts more and more and more and more, and you'll end up having a brain that's on your side. I have a trick that I play with my brain. Anytime it tells me something negative, I'll ask for something.
Give us something that our audience can do in order to go out of the cycle of suffering and negative thoughts. You know, this conversation is special. I mean, one is, of course, I admire what you're doing, but we have something that connects us. At the age of 14, I lost my father, and I translated that pain into power, into purpose, and you did exactly the same. And so, apart from being inspired by you, that is something that connects us. And I'm so happy that we have this conversation with you. So thank you for...
Yeah, I don't know if I transmitted the pain into anything really. I think a lot of people sort of give me a lot of credit for having taken my son's departure that courageously they call it. They say I'm very brave. I have to say I think I was trained for many years to deal with those kinds of tragedies or difficulties or challenges in a way that is very, what's the word? Maybe stoic. And it's very surprising because even his mother, which is a very emotional person who loved nothing in the world more than Ali, was also very stoic. And, you know, in my culture here in the Muslim world, we tend to believe that this means he's going to a good place. If the parents are calm, it's sort of a blessing that he's safe, he's happy, he's moving in the right direction, if you want. And you'll never really know if it was, which triggered which. You know, if you take the chronological order of things, then you could say, we were calm and accepting, and so he's moved on to a better place. Or maybe if you take the causality of things, maybe he moved on to a better place, and as a result, we chose to be calm and accepting. But it is a pain that is never, that really never heals, I think, when someone that close to you leaves. But it's also, as you rightly said, it completely redefined everything for myself, for my wife then, who was my ex now, for my daughter, his sister, and everyone who loved him. I think it redefined their journeys in very prominent ways.
Yeah. You already talk a lot about the story, so that I don't want to talk about the story. But what I'm interested is like, what helped you the most to overcome that moment?
I think there is a spiritual side to it that is not accessible to everyone, which is the choice to believe that we are more than our bodies. I think is a very important component to deal with losing someone you love. But I think that applies to the bigger picture as well. You know, there is the reality, which you can actually probably prove mathematically, that most of the calamities and challenges in your life turn out to be good in the long term. And if we can do very complex mathematics across millions of people and see if that holds true. Or, you know, I could invite you and our listeners to just look back at their own journeys and, that break up when, in your teen or in your early 20s, that at the time felt excruciatingly painful, and then you realize, oh my God, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That burnout that slowed you down, that fight with a friend that changed your direction, and so on. And it's quite interesting that most of those events, they feel painful then. They feel pivotal now. You look back at them, and I run that when I teach Solve for Happy. I run an experiment that I call the eraser experiment. Just a thought experiment at when I'm doing a physical workshop, but we've done that for probably 20,000 people so far, and 99% wouldn't erase their past. They would choose, when you tell them that the erasing the past will erase every benefit that came as a result of it, erasing a painful experience from the past. They go like, oh, so I don't get to have this friend, I don't get to have that learning, I don't get to move on and do this. No, I'll take it, I'll keep it, right? And it's quite interesting because it's almost entirely, as I said, 99%. So it's almost always the case that pain, sands you down, polishes you to be a better version of you. We call it post-traumatic growth in psychology. But the funny bit is that regardless of how many times that happens to you in your life, when the next one is happening right now, you go like, I can't stand that pain. Why is this happening to me? This is unfair. I mean, if everyone in the past became a celebration with the passage of time, then you might as well think of this current challenge in the same way.
Would you mind sharing what is the tool that you use with people so that we can understand?
Yeah, the eraser experiment is, at the time when I wrote Solve for Happy, I was still Chief Business Officer of Google X. And so I used to actually, dramatize the thought experiment and tell them, look, we have a technology at Google X that allows you to pinpoint an event in the past and erase it. Literally erase it out of space-time, not out of your memory. We erase it out of space-time as it never happened. We reconfigure your path through life as a result of that. And we'll find out, how you'll never remember it again, okay? Because it never actually happened. And I would ask them first to reflect and look for that event that, was so painful that they want to erase. And then I'll say, okay, so we're gonna queue in line and, one by one erase your painful memory. But by the way, it will erase everything that happened as a result. And you can literally see people going back to their seats saying, no, I don't want to erase it if that's the case. And it is true. It is true for all of us. It is true for almost all of our experiences, including the loss of Ali, of my son. As I look back at it now, of course, Ali's departure triggered basically my entire something bigger. And I started 1 Billion Happy, the mission. I wrote 4 bestsellers since, and I've spoken to, I mean, it's even hard to believe, but we've reached probably more than 100 million people. Not just with a video, because that would be lying, right? Videos would have probably be approaching fractions of a billion people by now. But it's people that receive the message that tells them that happiness is their priority, it's their birthright, it is within reach, and that then took action based on that message. So they either started investing in their own happiness, or they started investing in the happiness of another. And that's very measurable on the internet. You can see the track of videos and how, they watched this one, then that one, then this one. They read this book, then that book, then this book. Or you can see that they took those, that content and reposted it or shared it with someone else, which basically is investing in the happiness of others. And it is incredible. It's incredible. I mean, never in my life expected that this would be the last season of my life, but there you go.
I love. So what you're saying is that, I mean, the pain is there, But then how, when you move forward, you take the decision to, okay, this happened, and then now what do I do with it? That's how you that's what you're saying, right?
There is I differentiate in two of my books, Solve for Happy and That Little Voice in Your Head. I differentiate between pain and suffering, and these are two very, very different experiences. Pain comes from outside you. Okay, it's like cutting your finger. You feel pain, and the pain is unavoidable, but pain heals over time.
Yeah.
Right. You know, physical pain heals automatically. Mental pain or emotional pain, that takes engagement to heal, right? So the challenge is, if you cut your finger last Friday, by now it would have healed. There is absolutely no way you can regenerate that pain on demand, okay? But if your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, tells you something painful on Friday, Saturday morning you wake up and you go like, what was that scenario at 4 p.m. That script? Yeah. Play that script again and torture me, right? And you run it again in your head over and over and over. Saturday, you run it 4 times. Sunday, you say he or she doesn't love me anymore. Monday, you say I'm going to spend the rest of my life alone. I'm a horrible person, And you can add drama and stories and beef it up so that it tortures you, okay? But the event happened last Friday. It's over.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist right now. And the whole idea is you can regenerate the suffering by turning the story into a thought that runs in your head incessantly over and over and over and over. And believe it or not, that's a choice. Okay, it's a lot of people that will hear me say this will go like, "What do you mean a choice? I have no control over my thoughts." And then I tell them, so what can you see in front of that table, on top of that table? And they'll say, a crystal glass. And I'll say, well, you have control over your thoughts. You can tell your brain what to do and it does it, right? And by the way, when I asked you about what was on the table, you stopped thinking about your partner last Friday. And it's quite interesting. So I really put a lot of dedication to solving that lack of training, if you want, issue in Solve for Happy again, and in That Little Voice in Your Head. And a big part of that was to understand why we do this. Why do we run something over and over in our heads? And it comes in 3 layers, really, when you think about it. The first layer is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that we think that the thoughts in our heads are me talking to me.
Yeah.
Right? And so accordingly, I should listen. Whatever I'm telling me is worthy of attention. And I always ask people, and I say, if it was you talking to you, why would it need to talk? Right? So,
Yeah.
right? It's a very simple question,
Exactly.
really, but very profound. And the analogy is actually quite interesting because, I basically say the thoughts in your head are a biological function. You have a heart that pumps blood around your body, and that's a survival mechanism. Without blood being pumped around your body, you wouldn't survive. And yet you don't tell yourself I'm blood. Okay, your kidneys take poisons out of your body in the form of urine. You don't know about. Do you know anyone that says I'm urine? No. Right. That the thing is, somehow the biological function of your head is to, if your brain is to analyze the world around it and present it to you in a way that ensures your decision making keeps you safe. And for some reason we say, I'm my thoughts. I think, therefore I am. Okay, and it's absolutely crap. It's I am, therefore my brain thinks. Right.
Exactly.
And if you make that separation, then those thoughts are being presented to you. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to obey them. You can schedule them. Like, if I had something on my mind before I came here, and then we shook hands and we sat down, I can tell my brain, look, we're going to talk about this at 1:30, right? And my brain will go like, yeah, 1:30 is fine, no problem. I'll
Yeah.
focus on Rodrigo now,
Yeah.
right? And when you really start to see it that way, you become the boss, and thoughts become your tool. and your objective becomes your well-being, not the constant incessant thinking that comes from the negativity bias of your brain. Then the brain doesn't want to tell you. So the second thing to observe is in a typical unmanaged conversation with your brain will always tell you what's wrong with the situation, not what's right. Why? Because what is right does not constitute a threat to your survival. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So the very basic function of your brain is if a tiger shows up,
Yeah.
your brain doesn't want to say, hey, oh my God, look how majestic that animal is, right? Just want to say, we're going to die,
Exactly.
right? And so if you get an email, we're going to die. If your boyfriend's or girlfriend's upset, we're going to die. If you're stuck in traffic, we're going to die. And your response to all of that is just constant negativity that actually does not correspond to the reality of the world that you live in. So you can be stuck in traffic. Like I came 10 minutes late. I apologize for that. But, I got stuck in traffic and I could sit the whole way
Yeah.
cursing, driving in traffic. Why am I wasting my life? Why are all those people summoned here to annoy me? The car was invented and the roads were laid down and, everyone was called here just because life is against me. And you can make up any story, okay? Or you can simply tell yourself, oh my God, I'm stuck in traffic. That first and foremost means I'm alive, okay?
Yeah.
Great. I'm not in Gaza. There are no bombs landing on top of my head. I'm not starving. I actually am in a car. Most people would have to walk, and that's actually statistically correct. If you talk about India, the majority of the population doesn't have that luxury.
Exactly.
I'm safe. I'm not freezing to death. I am, aware of the passage of time, right? And by the way, I have a tiny little device where I can text Rodrigo and say, no disrespect at all. I'm really sorry that, it was unexpected, but there are roadworks. And he texts back and says, yeah, no problem. And everything's done. It's solved. Where's the problem, right?
Yeah.
And yet we choose to focus on what's wrong, not what's
Love
right.
it.
Okay. So the average negativity in an adult's mind is 70%. So if you randomly ask your friends to tell you something happened last week, 70% of the time you'll get something negative
Wow.
that happened last week. And so all you need to do is to correct that. And how do you correct that? When I have a trick that I play with my brain. Anytime it tells me something negative, I'll ask for something positive. Say,
Yeah.
okay, that's the beginner's level. So you have to assume that if something is wrong with life, there is also something right. So you just have to direct your brain to leave its negativity bias behind and look for what's right. And if you're a Jedi master, as I say on your happiness, you actually take the correct ratios. And the correct ratios is that around 99% of the time, life is right. Okay, you're mostly healthy, of course, other than a few unlucky ones of us that have a chronic disease or something. But for most of us, if you're healthy and you get the flu 3 times a year or twice a year, the flu is the anomaly. Health is the baseline. Okay, most of us have never been in an earthquake. Solid ground is the baseline. Natural disasters are the anomaly, and you have to start realizing that if you get to eat once a day, oh my God, you're so lucky. If you're just listening to us right now, that by definition means you have a phone. The phone is connected to the internet. You can afford to the hour to listen to us. You can have a mind that can be critical of what we're sharing. It's endless blessings, and yet we let our brains hijack us with their negativity bias. So that's number 2, and number 3 is quite interesting. It's a very keen understanding of time. Your brain, as sophisticated as it is as a computing machine, it is confined within that boundary that physics calls the arrow of time, and so it has this constant reflection on the past and constant planning of the future, right? And it's quite interesting. In Solve for Happy, I did a very quick. I wrote down 137 human emotions, and I categorized them. I said some of basically negative and positive emotions are, what by that I mean uncomfortable and comfortable emotions. Emotions you want to feel and emotions you don't want to feel, because all emotions are positive, right? And then I basically said, where are they anchored? Past, present, or future? Okay, so you take an emotion like regret.
Oh,
Regret, you feel regret right
yeah.
now, but regret is anchored in the past.
Yeah.
Right? Worry. You feel worry right now, but it's anchored in the future. It's
future.
related to something that might happen. Right? And then there are emotions that you feel here, right now, excitement, for example, or calm, right? And you'll be blown away. The majority of all negative or uncomfortable emotions are anchored in the past and the future. The majority of the comfortable emotions are anchored in the present, right? And so, it's quite stupid, because the past and the future don't exist. They only exist inside your head.
Exactly.
Okay? And so you have to bring a thought up in your head related to the past, run it over and over and, munch on it until you torture yourself. Okay? And the reason is because of a misunderstanding of a concept that I call the brain time and practical time continuum. Okay? Brain time is to incessantly run a thought in your head and torture yourself with it without having any outcome out of it. Okay? I'm stuck in traffic. I need to get to the dentist. I'm going to miss my appointment. I keep telling myself shitty things about myself, right? And how horrible my life is. Doesn't improve anything. Okay? Or I'm stuck in traffic. I have a dentist appointment. I text them and say, it seems I'm going to be 10 minutes away. Is that okay, or should I book another appointment? Right? One of them is practical time. You turn your calamity of being stuck in traffic into something practical.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other is brain time. You just stay there incessantly for the rest of your life. And some people literally stay there for the rest of their lives. Right? Now, that trick is very straightforward. That basically means that if your emotion is triggered by a thought that's anchored in the past, you turn that into learning and you leave the thought. Right? Because until you turn it into learning, your brain keeps bringing it up. Because
Can you give an example?
I dated someone that turned out to be a gold digger, right? Okay, I can tell myself I'm stupid. I can tell myself, how did you allow yourself to do that? She objectified me. She, manipulated me, whatever. Okay, and I can think about the situations when she manipulated me and tell myself, how was I so stupid, right? Or I can tell myself, interesting. That was an experience I needed to know, because now in my life, I am a reasonably successful, reasonably, targeted man. And I needed that skill of spotting someone who is not genuinely in love with me. And, here are the skills I needed to learn. Here are, the communication skills I needed to adapt. Here are the awareness skills that would have prevented me from being manipulated, and so on and so forth. Are we done, brain? Is this addressed enough? Can we take notes of what we've discussed? And then suddenly, the minute you do that, your brain doesn't bring it up anymore.
So good.
Right? And if it does bring it up, you go like, are we missing anything? we have our notes here.
Yeah.
Are you bringing it up because something is not discussed? And if there is something not discussed, you go like, great, 6 p.m., paper and pen, we're going to sit down, think this deeply, and find out what we need to learn, right? And I think that turning brain time into practical time completely discontinues your brain's ability to keep you stuck in pain, okay? Because in reality, it doesn't matter what happened.
Yeah.
It's past. It only exists inside your head.
Yeah.
If I'll say this, and I hope people don't think of it as unfeeling, but every time people bring up Ali, and it happens in every podcast, it hurts. It physically hurts right here. Okay? I know for a fact it's the bottom right hand side of my heart, right? It feels like a part of my heart is missing. I don't have to bring up Ali all the time. So when I'm sitting with myself and my brain tells me something like Ali died, I'll say, yes, brain, but Ali also lived. Can we focus on this, please? Right? The whole idea is your brain is just incessantly thinking about something. And its task is to think about it to help you figure out how to be safe. Okay? And losing a loved one is one of the most unsafe.
Yeah.
Because you sort of lose trust in life itself, right? And so it keeps bringing it up because it wants you to figure it out. And I go like, okay, look, I know you don't like this, but the day you sign the contract to live is the same day you sign the contract to die. Okay? Of every one of the billions that have ever been born, no one escaped that contract. It seems that this is how life is. You might as well accept it, okay, as it is, and instead of thinking incessantly to cause me pain, think incessantly to cause me joy, okay, or think incessantly to solve my problem. And both of these happened very significantly with Ali. One of them is what I said, if my brain tells me Ali died, I say Ali lived. That's a very joyful thought, okay? It brings me a lot of joy that Ali lived. It reminds me of all of the wonderful bits of that story, instead of that one last bit that was extremely painful. Because, believe it or not, despite the pain of losing him, I would still, if I was to vote, I'd still have him again over and over and over, right? Because of all of the joy that he brought for 21 years, right? Now, the other side of it is that sometimes, your brain is bringing you a thought and there is no joy in it. Like, the economy is going to collapse. We all know that, right? And so, okay, brain, I take that thought. What can we do about it?
Exactly.
Right? How can you turn that into a useful thought? So good thoughts are either joyful or useful. If you're stuck in joyful or useful thoughts, think away. Think forever. Right? Think as fast as you can, as many thoughts as you can. It's that incessant type of thinking that creates suffering. We started from the difference between pain and suffering. It's that incessant kind of thinking that creates suffering that is, in all honesty, the most stupid thing that humanity has ever done, because it doesn't change a thing other than making you suffer.
Exactly. You know what? For me, I remember when I look at my journey, there was the moment I understood that, okay, if I have a lot of thoughts and I'm talking to myself. So if I'm talking to myself, it means there are two people, So meaning it's not just myself, there are two people.
Yeah.
And the moment I understood that, it made me feel, okay, so it looks like there's someone constantly bombarding me with thoughts.
Yeah.
And that helped me to understand, there's something here. And a lot what comes is negative. Yeah. And then also what helped me was to understand, but wait a minute, exactly what you say. I started to understand, I don't need to listen to every thought.
Yeah.
Just leave it there, whatever it is. So that helped me a lot to distance myself from all the thoughts and not to engage with them.
Yeah, all the noise.
And the noise.
Yeah.
And you know what? And there was this. I was in a session. There was an online session. There was a coach, and people were sharing with the coach situations from the life, and he was sharing his thoughts on his life. And there was this lady. She said, "Look, what happened to me is my son committed suicide 2 weeks ago, and my entire family is criticizing me because I'm not crying. I'm not feeling bad about what happened." And it's weird. And when she said that, look, for me, I had an amazing life with my son. I did everything that I could to be with him. I was present. And now this happened. I just accepted and I move forward. And that's when I understood that, wow, even in this situation, we have the power to decide 100%. What we want to do. So it's really
And imagine the difference between the two decisions, right? One of them is sit down, blame yourself,
exactly.
collapse for the rest of your life. I always publicly said that, losing Ali, one of the very first thoughts that came to my head is you took him to the wrong hospital.
Yeah.
Okay, you should have taken him to another hospital, right? Of course, your brain is analyzing, saying like,
Exactly.
no, I took him to the largest, most established hospital that was the nearest to our home
Yeah.
when he was in pain,
Yeah.
right? And seriously, I sat back with myself and I said, look, if this situation happened again now, I would definitely never go to that hospital.
Yeah.
But at the time, I would have absolutely taken the same
That's it.
decision over and
Wow.
over, right?
Love
And so that one thought, you killed your son, you should have taken him to another hospital, that could have collapsed as a man's life forever, right? The other thought, which is, I tried my absolute best. He's on his own journey to a different place. That thought allows you to write 4 bestsellers and start a mission, and and go on with whatever remains with your life in a way that's positive and impactful until you get to hug him again.
Thank you for sharing that, my friend. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that's the answer, honestly. Shall we end the podcast?
Yeah, I think that the beauty also for me, that realization was realizing that, but then I have the power to decide whatever I want to think and I want to feel, right? Or whatever thoughts, I have the power to direct whatever I want.
Not everybody believes that. Okay, and allow me to explain that, and you have to have the compassion for it. I can easily tell you that the easiest way for us to have started this podcast, for example, was to carry that heavy desk from here to there.
Yeah.
Okay, and everyone knows that if we had carried it from here to there, we would start recording, everything would work well, right? But not everyone is capable of carrying 50 kilograms. Right? And so when you tell them, if you want the podcast to run, if you want the story to unfold, you have to carry 50 kilograms, they say, I can't. I cannot carry 50 kilograms. But if they go to the gym for a few weeks and they come back, and you tell them, okay, to start the podcast, to start your life, the story of your life, you have to carry this 50 kilograms from here to there. They'll say, yeah, sure, easy, I can do that. Right? The difference between the two, by the way, it is the exact same biology, believe it or not. Huh? You tear your muscles by carrying heavy loads, and then you rest and replenish your muscles, and they become bigger and stronger. Right? The same happens in your brain. We call it neuroplasticity. Mm-hmm. The only difference is that because it's inside your skull, you can't see it. You can't visibly see that your muscles are becoming bigger. Right? But it's the same. If you keep teaching yourself to stop thinking incessantly and start thinking useful thoughts, okay, it becomes very easy. You would tell someone the way to overcome your unhappiness is to think differently about the world, and they'll say, I can't do that. Go to the gym, right? And if you go to the gym, you learn how to do that, and it is very doable. I mean, the simplest gym, I mean, in Unstressable, we wrote something that we call the gym with 6 M's. But, the first step is meditate, okay? Meditation is not the act of quieting your brain. Most people don't understand that. It's the act of trying to quiet your brain. It's the act of trying to tell your brain what to do. Right? And so you're sitting there, and by the way, the Californian teachings and sometimes the spiritual teachings is focus on your breathing, right? Focus on your breathing, or focus on the flame of a candle, or focus on looking for the color white in this room, or focus on trying to listen to the hum of the air conditioner, or focus on a drop of water on your nose that is itching you. Okay, focus on anything other than incessant thought, and literally the minute you do that, you're pulling your brain from scatter to focus. Okay, yes. And it's exactly like the gym. Every time you lift a heavy weight in the gym, Okay? The objective is not for the weight to go higher than your head. The objective is for your muscles to struggle with that action. And as they struggle with that action, they become stronger. The objective of meditation is to sit down and wonder, mind wander, okay? And then observe that your mind wandered and say, okay, time to push the load, bring it back to quiet, calm. And, seconds or minutes later, you'll mind wander again. Great, one more pump, right? One more rep in your exercise. And as long as you do that, not only in the meditation room, also on your commute, also when you're, taking a break at work, also, right? Just focus on quietening that beast, okay? Using that muscle to tell it what to do, and just give yourself, like the gym, 21 days of doing that, and you'll be fit. And when we tell you, you can actually control your thoughts, so that they are useful, they are joyful. You go like, yeah, I can do that. I mean, I fail sometimes, but most of the time I can.
Yeah, to what you're saying. So there's a principle that's the principle, and what we're saying is this is something that it needs to be practiced, like a
100%.
muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same. So I do meditation every day, and on 1 hour a day. So and that has been that's been a huge game changer for me. Exactly for the reason what you say. And a lot of times I struggle with a lot of thoughts, but I stay there because I know that the reason why I'm here is not that I don't have thoughts.
Yeah.
It's for me to practice to go from having thoughts to not having thoughts.
Correct.
And that's if we bring that also to our life, it's exactly the same. It's about going through life, going through whatever situations it is, and deciding not to be in the past, not to be in the future, but always to bring to the present.
Correct.
And that's what I love about what you're saying. I think it's like we have this amazing machine. I think we have this amazing machine, but I think something that is missing is about, I think we don't know exactly how to fully operate
100%.
and to get the full potential of what it can give us. And for me, I am in that journey about what you said, and I know you and me, we are in that journey. We know this is the way to go deeper, to achieve our potential, to do something bigger, is to go deeper and to understand better how this machine works inside
100%.
so that we can create impact outside.
Yeah. When I wrote that little voice in your head, that was the exact premise. The exact premise was most humans in the modern world know how to run the computer in their phone better than the computer in their head. Okay? and honestly, and I used a ton of analogies from tech that you use.
Yeah.
Okay? To how your brain runs. And memory management and processor speed and so many things that simply are very intuitive for you when you're swiping on your phone, but somehow nobody ever taught us how to use that brain. I mean, bring it down to the bare minimum. What you use grows, what you don't shrinks.
That's it.
Think positive thoughts more and more and more and more, and you'll end up having a brain that's on your side. Okay, believe it or not, I do not meditate anymore. Okay, and there were times where I used devices to measure my brain activities while I was meditating, and I was getting to points where my brain was completely silent for a very long time. I don't want to brag, but if I tell you the figures, it's just staggering, and not with much practice at all, but with consistency. And at a point in time, I decided to take my meditation into the real world. So of course I meditate, but just for the joy of it. But it is you get to a point where you have to be mindful. You have to be present in every minute of every day. Okay?
That's it.
And it's quite interesting. Just like you focus on your breathing, if you focus on every language cue of someone that you're talking to, every tone of their voice, every body language, every stray eye, everything. If you just look at their posture, if you're just completely absorbed into that conversation, if you try to understand every word, if you try to differentiate between what is in your head in terms of what you're being told and what your head is generating, and so on. Just paying deep attention to a conversation is a form of meditation.
Exactly.
Right? Just paying deep attention to the road when you drive. I love restoring classic cars. Young timers most of the time. So if you take cars from the early 2000s, they'll have the pedals on the steering wheel, and I make a choice to, when I drive my old cars, to drive them in manual mode. Right? Because then you're aware of the road, you're aware of the gear that you're in, you're aware of the engine noise, you're aware of right? Instead of just putting it in automatic and then swiping on your phone, right? And it's practices that you do all the time. If I'm sitting in traffic, I look for the number 6 in the plates, in the number plates around me.
Really?
Right? Yeah. When I'm sitting, I usually don't have a radio running, but if I do, I never play my own music. I set 6 preset channels on the radio, and make it my game to make sure that I don't listen to a song that I don't like. Right? So if music plays, I'm paying full attention to what is on the radio. If an annoying presenter shows up, I will switch to the next channel. If there is an ad, I will switch to the next channel. If there is a song I don't like, I will switch to the next channel. And if I go across all 6 and they're all things I don't like, I switch off. And I count in my heart around 60 seconds and then switch on again. It's an exercise. Okay? Being present, being aware of and focused on what's happening inside your head all the time. That is when you take meditation of 10 minutes a day, an hour a day, and then you turn it into a practice that is 15, 16 hours a day.
Wow. You know what? So when you were talking about whatever, I was thinking, for me, I do that, and it helped me a lot in terms of being more focused and with meditation. But there's something that happens naturally, which is quite crazy. It's not my objective, but it happens naturally when I'm doing meditation, and it goes in the direction what you're saying is that a lot of times I'm in my meditation, and suddenly there's some ideas that comes through me that I never
100%.
thought about it. So a lot of times, like ideas for my life, for my business, it comes through me, and it's just because my brain is just so quiet, all the noise is out, and everything comes out.
Yeah.
And that's for me also, that's another power of the meditation. But what you say is also the same for me. I think for me, it's like meditation is not about just going to a place and sit still. That works. But the real meditation, and for me, it's about what you're saying. It's about going through life, through every situation in your day, and be absolutely present
all the time.
and all the time. Yeah. And it's this habit of bringing our attention every time that I think it's a muscle and we can develop.
Yeah, it's and we can choose to use it. So everyone listening to us now could be incessantly thinking all the way to work around the argument they had with their partner at home before they left, right? And the minute they get to work and their boss will say, "Where is the report I asked for yesterday?" They'll be able to tell their brain, "Okay, no more argument with my partner. Focus on the report. Sit down, look at your email, attach it, send it." We have that muscle, all of us.
Exactly.
We just don't choose to exert it when it comes to torturing ourselves.
Now we understood with this conversation, understood that like we have this tool, which is our minds, that's very powerful. How can our audience who is watching give us something that our audience can do in order to go out of the cycle of suffering and negative thoughts? Give us something that can help us.
The truth, I every time I write a book, I start with the last sentence in the book first, okay? And then I go back in my thinking and see where the world is right now. And then I try to connect them literally with a flow chart.
Really?
Yeah, right? And so the last sentence in my first book was, happiness is found in the truth. Okay? Happiness is found in the truth. And why do I say that? Because the truth can either be good or bad. It's not really good or bad. It's what you want or what you don't want.
Okay.
Okay. And we can come back to that based on the happiness equation. The truth either meets your expectations or misses your expectations.
Yeah.
Right. If it meets your expectations, then why the F are you unhappy? Right. If it misses your expectations, then there is a process for you to accept that and deal with it. Right. Both ways, why the F are you unhappy? What is unhappiness bringing to you? And so happiness is found in the truth. What that means is, most of the time, we said that in the passing, most of the time your life is okay. Okay, if you really look at the norm of life for most of us, the reason why we get so devastated when my son Ali leaves is because he was there for 21 years, right? The problem is, for those 21 years, for most of us, we don't notice the blessing. We don't remember the truth, okay? And the truth is he was there, okay? The truth is he came. The truth is he was wonderful. The truth is he was loving, okay? He was handsome. He was smart, wise, giving, compassionate, generous. He was there, right? And that is the truth for 21 and a half years. Now, most of us forget that part of the truth and focus on the negative part of the truth. So, if you want the absolute alpha breakthrough of any kind of brain management or mind management, if you want, it's gratitude, right? But gratitude let's talk about it not as a guru sitting on a mat somewhere. Let's just talk about it scientifically, from the happiness process point of view. You are only happy if life meets your expectations. Think about it, okay? Rain does not have any inherent value of happiness or unhappiness in it. If it's your ex-girlfriend's wedding, you want it to rain, right? Rain is very good. If you want to water your plants, you want it to rain. If you want to sit on the beach and suntan, you don't want it to rain. If you're late to work, you don't want it to rain. There is no inherent value of happiness or unhappiness in anything. Rain, so money. Most people that I teach that are multi-billionaires are miserable, right? That's actually very well documented, that money has very little impact beyond your basic needs on your happiness, right? And you could say that a lot of money attracts gold diggers to me, so that makes me unhappy. Or a lot of money allows me to help people, so that makes me happy. No inherent value of happiness in money, okay? My body type. I could look at it and say, hey, I have a tiny little belly, and, I'm not very handsome in the way I dress, and, that's a bad thing. Or I can say, I have a little belly, which is quite nice for my age. I'm very healthy, and I don't give a shit about the way I dress, which exudes confidence, right? And so for most of the women that came into my life, they found that extremely attractive, right? It's the same thing. You can think of it as a curse or a blessing. You can think of it as good or bad, and so on. If your happiness is the result of events meeting your expectations, you can document that in an equation. Your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be, right? Now, that comparison happens in your head consistently, literally on every change of context. And if you compare, like this chair is a little tilted to the back, it's not perfectly suited for my back, and so on. And so as soon as I sat down, I said, okay, am I going to be comfortable here, right? That's one context. Then, I carry this glass and I'm afraid it will fall down, and then I put it here and it's safe, and I go like, okay, that's, you're comparing almost like a computer ticking megahertz. Every one of the ticks, it compares and says, is this good for me? Now, the reality, however, is, as I said, 99% of the time, everything's fine. This room is okay. This is a chair, not a rock. The air conditioner is fine. It's quiet, it's nice, we have a nice conversation. Everything's wonderful. We tend to forget that because of the brain's negativity bias, as we said. So gratitude in that case does not only remind you that life is meeting your expectations. By finding things you're grateful for, you're actually reminding your brain that life is beating your expectations so much that you're grateful.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so you're doubling down on the happiness equation. You're basically saying it's not only okay, it's not events are not even just equal to expectations. They are beating expectations because they are reasons that I should be grateful. Now, the reason we're challenged with gratitude, as I said, is number one, the negativity bias. Number two is media and social media. They're constantly telling us what's wrong with the world. But number three, and quite an interesting side of it, is because we benefit, of course, from seeing, as I said, what's wrong. It's a survival mechanism.
Oh, and that's,
Right? Now, if you now decide that you're going to be looking for what's good about life, you can look for what's good about life in three different ways. You can look at what's good about life in terms of, do I have what I need, right? You can look at it in terms of, do I have more than what I need? And you can look at it, interestingly, in terms of, am I not suffering like others? So that technique is a technique that I call looking down, right? So most, there is a term I'm not going to use. I instead use the term problems of privilege, okay? But on the internet, it's a racist comment, basically. But problems of privilege are problems that you see only when you don't have other problems. Okay, so let's
example.
You're stuck with someone you don't like in an airport for 4 hours is a problem of privilege because you're in the airport for 4 hours. If you're starving to death because there is no food in that airport for the last 4 days, you're not going to think about the issue of being stuck with that person.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and it's actually quite interesting because for most people who can afford to listen to this conversation, they're probably luckier than 90% of the world, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to recognize your problems of privilege, you have to start to learn to look down. Okay, our Western approach to things is to look up. Is to say, why is Elon Musk worth $1 trillion or $500 billion and I'm not? Okay, this is so shitty, life is unfair. Okay, or you can also tell yourself, why are there so many people hungry in the slums of India and I'm not? Okay, just by the sheer coincidence of being born in a place where I wasn't going to be starving to death, to parents that managed to get me so far here, even if they annoyed me and shouted at me every now and then, right? And when you start to look at life by comparing downwards, it's actually hard to ignore how privileged you are.
Exactly.
Okay, especially in the world we live in today. And it is quite interesting that just by that simple mind shift, gratitude becomes your slam dunk every time. And so how do you become grateful? You either do a gratitude practice at the end of every evening, say what happened well this day. Okay, you could do the I call it the interrupt level practice with your brain. Every time it tells you something wrong, you ask for something good. Okay,
I love that.
Right, and that becomes your practice. It's like every time it's and the way to do that, we didn't mention this, but I call my brain Becky, third party. Right? Yeah, and Becky basically speaks, and then I treat Becky as my friend in school. So if your friend in school came every 30 minutes or 3 minutes or 30 seconds and said something annoying, after a while you go like, Becky, is there anything good right now? Right? And it's very straightforward because Becky goes
so
like,
good.
I didn't think of that. There could be something good, but let's focus on the issue. And you go like, no, what is going well? And she will find it. Immediately find it. It's quite very straightforward, right? And those kinds of practices, by the way, interestingly, do not change your reality. Your reality is exactly the same. It's just you've noticed it. Okay? You've seen it for what it really is, right? I can look at my current age and say, oh, I'm aging. Or I can look at my current age and say, I'm aging much better than my friends. Or I can look at my current age and say, I have never attracted more women in my life, right? It's quite interesting. And none of those, by the way, is good or bad. But it's a perception. It's a story that you can tell yourself that makes you feel better about life, because you know what? Whatever story you tell yourself, your age will remain to be your age.
And you're right.
Absolutely. Right. And so all of them are correct. Just choose the story that makes you realize that you are so blessed, and you'll become blessed. You'll feel happy.
And actually, I mean, I'm going to start today. I never thought about what you mentioned about whenever you have a negative thought, always bring a positive thought.
Bring me a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you come to this realization
Oh my
about
God, that's a very interesting question. But by the way, I'm very tired today. I'm not looking unhappy, but I'm very tired. So if people think I'm not smiling,
No,
I
but
am.
sorry,
No,
Mo, but that's a perception. That's
Is
your
it?
perception.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I feel very a little unsmiley. I actually learned it in business. It's quite interesting. So I'm a very serious geek. I always was, and geeks tend to be individual contributors. And then early in my career, in my late 20s, I got promoted, and so I had large teams reporting to me, and I was a serious geek. So I had to learn that skill of managing people, right? And which appeared to be very strange for me, because people are very strange, right? And anyway, when you become a manager, your task shifts away from finishing work to sitting in your office and receiving one person after the other complaining about life, right? And so I very quickly recognized that there is a pattern that works. And meetings were 30 minutes long. So I take the first 10 minutes basically telling the person that's complaining to lash out. Like, oh, the guys in the legal department, they're, very difficult, and they dislike me, and they trying to do this. And I go like, what else? Have they actually insulted you recently? Oh my God, tell me what more? 10 minutes. So a third of the meeting, I let them lash out. Okay. And then the second 10 minutes, I start to remind them of gratitude. I tell them, but is there anything good about Susan?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean? She's annoying. And I'm like, yeah, why do you think she's annoying? What do you think her task in the company is? Did you hear of that time when the contract went wrong, and she helped us, save the company because she had that term in there? Or, is she cute? Whatever. I don't mean that in a harassment way, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is there anything? Is she a nice person? Is she a mother of two that when you talk to her about her children, she's wonderful, right? Is she actually concerned and respectful for your stresses? Because I hear that she is, right? So that's the second next the 10 minutes is gratitude. Is what? Let's see the truth. You're focused on the negative. Let's focus on the positive, right? And then the third 10 minutes is useful thoughts. So, okay, I got you now. So Susan is giving you a hard time, but she's a good person. Legal is generally against sales because they want to keep the company safe. But by the way, they also want to get the contract done so that you stop annoying them, right? And now let's talk about the practical 10 minutes, which is, what can we do about this? Okay, how can we make things better? What can we do about this is the best question ever. Because then you simply sit with, with that person and say, okay, so do you guys want to get together in a meeting where I mediate between you? Do you have a couple of terms that are stuck between you and Susan, and you're not able to agree, and I can talk to her manager and we agree and tell you? Or is there a precedent that we can I give you an analyst to find precedent of contracts that included the term that you're looking for, or prove to you that this term is not, and so on, right? But the three stages are very valid for your brain. Okay, If your brain starts to complain, let it complain. I do that every Saturday. I just simply say, tell me everything that upset you last week. Okay? When it's done with that, you might as well say, tell me everything that pleased you last week. Right?
Yes.
And then at the end, you sit down with a paper and say, of those things that upset you, how can we eliminate some of them? Of those things that pleased you, how can you add and increase the intensity or the frequency of some of them? And it's simple practice when you say it out loud, but it's something that people forget. If you feel good when your manager treats you that way, or when your partner that way treats you that way, then you'll probably feel good if you treat yourself that way. Okay? If something's bothering you, listen for 10 minutes, find what's good about it for 10 minutes, and then focus on practical actions for 10 minutes. A paper and pen is very useful for that exercise. And most of the time, you'll be okay. You asked me how I learned it. That's how I learned it.
But you recognize, you start to see a pattern, and
100%.
then you.
Yeah. So basically,
That's interesting.
The way I learned.
But how did you learn it? Where did you get that idea?
I suddenly realized that I'm complaining all the time, like the people coming into my, into my office, and if it works for them, it might as well work for me. But I'm not complaining to my manager. I'm complaining to myself inside my head.
And what I like is that help us to have like it's like a pattern interruption. We are in this cycle. It's negative. But then when you need to stop that, and stop that is by thinking about the opposite. What is positive, right?
Correct.
And then you kind of calm, and then you see things a bit more, not through the lens of just the emotional, but then you can now you direct the brain in the direction of what you're saying. What can I do with this?
Yeah,
what is the solution, right?
It's very interesting that you said the lens of the emotional, because emotions are your interrupt level. I don't know if people recognize that.
Tell me more.
So when we used to program in the early days on computers.
When is the early days?
I started coding, I was 8, so that was...
No way.
Yeah.
8-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
You started coding.
Yeah, that must have been in the 70s. Yeah, I'm that old.
No, not that. But because age that's a perception, so don't worry about that.
I'm very, very, very happy with my age, to be honest. I've never been happier.
Yeah.
I'm alhamdulillah, I'm healthy. I'm slowing down properly. I'm experienced with a lot of things that makes life a lot easier. I'm calmer. I'm much more loving, kinder. I think all of these are amazing milestones, if you want, on the journey. So I know nothing about that. But we when I was young, when we coded computers, coding was a very, very tedious task, because the early compilers, you would write, a typical useful piece of code would be, between 100 to 80,000 lines of code, right? And if you write it and you understand it all in your head and in your flowcharts and so on, and then you would ask your compiler to turn it into executable code, okay? And if you made one mistake in the entire code, your compiler will come back to you with a very useful message: did not compile. It kills you, because basically what the F did not compile, like one of the breakthroughs when it told you which line was wrong, right? Early on, it just said did not compile, okay? Because you had a comma missing somewhere or whatever. Now, when you start to look at life in terms of trying to run those codes in that way,
yes,
you would run them, and then those codes would loop inside the computer sometimes. So that's another problem that we faced. You would run a code, and it's supposed to put 4 pixels on the screen and then do something and then exit, right? And you run it and it loops, and you have no idea where the loop is coming from. And the only answer at the beginning would have been to switch off the computer completely because it's looping, right?
Yeah.
And so we created those interrupt levels. So in your code early on, you would set an interrupt that if I press the space bar, cut the code, okay?
Oh, I
And
see.
if it doesn't matter what you're doing at the time. If I press the space bar, cut the code, okay? And those interrupt levels were very clear and visible, and you understood them. In humans, the interrupt level is your emotions, right? So you're going through life, you have this noise inside your head that's thinking about very complex concepts, and so many of them at the same time, and agreeing and disagreeing with itself, and it's very macro, if you want. It's very, very large to comprehend. But then if I poke your ribs, you'll go like, oh, right? You can stop everything and focus on that sensation, okay? If you feel sad, it can interrupt your operation and gets you to say, I just don't feel right today. If you have a sore throat, you go like, oh, hold on, I need to slow down because I seem to be catching a flu. And also, if you're very stressed, your mechanism, your biology literally gives you signals that are embodied. You can feel them. Like when you're very stressed, you get that, tingling and itching, and it depends on which stage of stress. You could be burnt out and so completely worn out, and so on and so forth, right? The trick is we don't listen to those interrupts at all. Why? Because the modern world is hyper masculine. So emotions are not supposed to be shared. Big boys don't cry. And, big girls, if they want to succeed in the workplace, or if they want to, not upset their boyfriend, they don't share their emotions, and so on. Okay? And so more and more and more, this world is basically telling us, don't be vulnerable. So it also is telling us it's not safe to share your emotions. And so accordingly, based on our safety models, we may decide that it's also not okay to acknowledge our emotions. And accordingly, maybe it's even safer to not feel our emotions, right? And so what happens now is that your emotions are constantly interrupting your cycle. You get highly stressed and you're about to burn out, but you keep going. So you end up burning out, or you end up getting an ulcer, or you end up getting diabetes or whatever, because of that constant stress that you ignored. Your interrupt level is your emotion. Now, the mistake with the modern world was that the modern world applied a safety model on us itself. Meaning, if we don't want you to show your emotions in professional environments or in stressful environments or whatever, so we might as well tell you not to feel your emotions at all, okay? Because emotions are bad. So the script that was given to us by capitalism really is emotions are a very bad thing. They're uncontrollable. They're not good for the quarterly results. They're unmanageable. Don't bring them here, please, right? The problem is emotions are not bad at all. As a matter of fact, there's nothing wrong with emotions at all, including the uncomfortable ones, right? So there are lots of emotions that are amazing. You can bring them to work and they'll make everything better. A bit of empathy, a bit of understanding, a bit of compassion, a bit of intuition, a bit of creativity, paradoxical thinking. All of those things are unusually they're usually unaccepted at work, but if you bring them to work, they're wonderful, right? And there are also, interestingly, by the way, if you bring them to your life, they're wonderful. Huh? So, most men will complain that their women are sometimes irrational, okay? If they had felt the number of things that their women feel, if they had if they had the sensuality, which is part of the feminine, of sensing everything that's happening around them like their women feel, they would have probably been thinking the same number of thoughts, and those thoughts would sometimes be contradictory, which is, again, paradoxical thinking is a big part of the feminine, to be able to hold two truths at the same time, right? And so on. And the idea is, if men only understood that women are that way because we are not. So, the hyper masculine needs someone to be monitoring the cave, right? Needs someone to be hypersensual, to be observant of everything, to be concerned about things that he's not concerned about, the masculine. And accordingly, there is an enormous value in that. There is an enormous value of feeling, worried. Worry is a very useful emotion. Let's take a few of them. Fear is a very interesting emotion. It feels negative, but without fear, we wouldn't have survived, right? Stress is a very useful emotion. It feels horrible, but it is the trigger of cortisol that enables you to go for fight or flight. Cortisol and adrenaline, and without it, we'd have been all eaten millions of years ago, right? I don't know. Take worry. Worry is, I'm not sure. I need to sit down and visit if the future is less safe than now or not. Okay, I need to make decisions based on that. Now, each one of those comes with a message. So an emotion is there to tell you something, right? One of the most interesting is boredom, right? Boredom is the reason why social media and entertainment industries are completely crushing us. Why? Because boredom is a very uncomfortable emotion. But why is boredom there? Boredom is there to tell you seem to be underwhelmed with the world as it is. This world is not exciting you. Okay? And you know what the message is? Get up and create a better world.
Yeah.
Right? Now, because the emotion feels uncomfortable, like any other sensation or emotion, like if hunger feels uncomfortable, then the food industry will try to exploit that to make you obese.
Yeah.
Right? If boredom feels uncomfortable, then the entertainment and social media industry will keep you swiping for hours. Right? But the message of the emotion is different. The message of the emotion is you can create something more exciting than this. You can.
Oh, I see.
If you feel bored,
Now I get it.
Loneliness, very interesting emotion.
Yeah.
If you're lonely, what do you do now? You swipe on social media to try and get a glimpse of humans behind a small screen that are not real, right?
Yeah.
When we felt lonely as older generations, we would not even call because there were no mobile phones. We would literally get dressed, go out, knock on our friend's door and say, "You want to come out?"
Yeah.
Okay. And if they didn't, we go down, we go to another building, we go up to another friend, and we knock and we say, "You want to go out?" Right? And those kinds of signals, when you respond to them, they work in your favor. Okay. And so your true interrupt level is multiple layers. Layer number one is to accept that emotions are a wonderful thing. That the only moment in your life you ever felt alive was an emotional moment. Okay. Or it was a moment where you sensed, you felt something, right? So that's number one. Number two, that they are not harmful in any way. That the actions that you take based on them could be harmful. So let's regulate your actions.
Yeah.
Right? But the emotion itself has no harm in it. It's a communication method. As a matter of fact, it's the most effective communication method because it crunches a massive amount of data into a very, very clear and laser sharp message. Right? And number three, by the way, is that if you don't listen to them, they don't go away. If you don't listen to them, as a matter of fact, they stay and they pile up. So you're going to feel them eventually. So you might as well feel them now. And once you start to look at it this way, you start to say, okay, can I give myself, just like your meditation and practice, can I give myself a regular check-in practice? A regular check-in practice that says, how do you feel right now? Right? Like I stopped a few minutes ago and I said, I'm really sorry, I'm a bit sleepy, so I'm not at my, at my complete cheerful self. And it is a check-in. You just simply say, how do I feel right now? My eyes are a little itchy. And so on. And these are really interesting practices to constantly be in touch with your body, with your emotions, with your existence. Right? So like you liked the practice of being mindful and present all the time in the external world, we need to learn to be mindful and present in the internal world.
Yeah.
In your emotional world, in your sensual world, how you feel, if you have any aches, do you have any pains, do you need to rest more, do you need to exercise a little, are you feeling rusty, are you feeling exhausted, are you feeling right? And are you in love, are you angry? all of these are incredibly valuable signals that make up your life. And so they can't be ignored.
And what you're saying, all that is all information that is available for you to use and to take decisions, right? It looks like it's almost like we're going in a road, and there's like sometimes there's a let's say there's a negative emotion that comes. It's just an information that maybe you're going off the road.
Correct.
And you just need to be aware about it, right? And that's when you say there's a pattern interruption,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
what you're saying.
My co-author on Unstressable, Alice Law, always says that an emotion is only there to give you a difficult emotion is only there to give you one of two signals. Either you need to change direction, or you
Yes.
need to learn something and heal.
Yeah. But also what you said, very interesting, is I think a lot of, we avoid, or we don't like being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But when we think about being uncomfortable as a way to learn and to grow, and as information, that becomes power.
Yeah,
Right?
which is quite interesting if you understand the analogy of the gym, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a good day at the gym, your muscles are sore.
Yeah.
They're aching. They're painful.
Yeah.
We love that feeling.
Mm.
It's quite interesting, huh? So you can condition yourself to love your emotions. Because you love the feeling of sore muscles because you know
Yeah.
it's good for you. Because
Yeah,
you know this
yeah,
is
yeah.
growth. This is going to make you fit. Right?
Yeah.
You love the feeling of hunger when you're intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
Because you know that this feeling is good for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea is, if you redefine emotions as these are wonderful.
Yes.
Every one of them is wonderful. The example that is so interesting is that if you think of life as Chinese sweet and sour, okay? If you like sweet and sour, not everybody does, but it is actually delicious because it's not because it's sweet. It's because it's sweet and sour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's all those variations of life that gives life flavor. It gives life, an arpeggio of tones and a palette of colors. If life was just one monotonous feeling, you wouldn't remember any of it. You wouldn't have lived any of it. Okay? And I think what people mostly don't understand is that the only reason an emotion can be rendered negative, again, interestingly, is to turn it into a thought in your brain.
Say that again.
So the fear is not negative at all. Fear is a fantastically
Oh, I
positive
see.
emotion.
Yeah.
Okay. The reality of fear
Yeah.
is there is a likely threat.
Yeah.
Okay. So I might as well make you feel uncomfortable so you run away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you fight. I might as well give you that bit of discomfort in comparison to the big discomfort of being eaten by a tiger. Right. The only way you can struggle with fear is to not respond to it, but then turn it into a thought in your head and say, the future is bleak. Okay? And then try to build scenarios around the future is bleak. And then try to tell yourself why you're in a shitty situation and that you're never going to be able to fare out of that fear. And then it's all here.
Yeah.
The emotion itself doesn't take any of that into consideration. The emotion is simply a hashing mechanism. It takes a very complex environment that cannot be summarized
Yes.
in a small sentence. So your brain has to summarize it into 200 thoughts, okay? And it just turns it into one concise feeling. When your brain feels that, when you feel that feeling, your brain engages and goes like, let me, spell this out for you. We're afraid because we fell in love once when we were 14 and he was an asshole. And then, the next guy was wonderful, but then I upset him and we broke up. And then this other guy, and I wish I had never met him. And, now this guy seems to be interesting, but I'm so afraid of being in love because if I'm in love, this might actually lead to responsibility and I have to work on myself and I have to change myself. And then if I do that, then if we break up, it will hurt me. And all of these are thoughts. Okay, and quite interestingly, just like we said with life and death, the minute you sign the contract of love, you also sign the contract of heartbreak. It's one and the same. It's the same contract, right? And so
Yeah.
interestingly, you're stuck in all of that when literally the feeling is, I'm afraid to fall in love because of certain reasons. I might as well address them. Okay, I might as well address them with myself or address them with my prospect. Address them with a therapist, whatever that is. Very simple, really. When you look at it as, oh, nice signal. Thanks for the fire alarm. I'm gonna do something about it.
Yeah. And a lot of times, as you said, it's all about the meaning that we make of a situation.
100%.
That's what you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
With like the rain and like the emotions is also the same. We can think that, okay, this fear is bad. No, but the meaning can be, this is good. It's protecting me.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's always incessant thoughts.
Exactly.
Trust me. If there was one thing you want to switch off to be 90% happier, it's your negative thoughts. Simple as that.
Yeah, and you already.
And this is why the Stoics are quite chill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they have that very simple guideline of, we're going to prioritize virtue, and so whatever situation that my brain is going to go through and struggle with, we have one direct answer. We're going to prioritize virtue, and don't waste my time, please. Yeah.
You mentioned that you are in a really good place now. You say you feel good.
Yeah.
You feel good with your age.
Yeah.
You're happy. You're creating impact. You know,
life is not without challenges.
Exactly.
But I'm in a very good. I've been in a very good place my whole life. To be honest, it's very very strange. And I have to say, most of us have been in a very good place most of our lives. It's just that the way we look at it is different.
In your journey, let's say in your journey of happiness, is there something that you are still battling?
Oh, lots of things.
Like, what is the one thing that you are still battling internally?
My relationship with love and relationships, for example.
Oh.
Right. Fell in love many times, succeeded every time. I believe that falling in love itself is a success.
Yeah.
But failed in relationships many times. Right. And I think most people do. Statistically 98% of all relationships break down. Right. So something that I can basically say, like what you see on social media, which is absolute crap. Women are this and women are that, or I can say, what am I contributing to this? Okay, how can I do this differently? And I love deeply, to the point that most of the women that came into my life are still very very close friends, right? Because there was that very deep analysis to get together in terms of like being really reasonably sure that this is a good match. Okay, but interestingly, with even in my late 50s, I still discover, there is that whole branch of compatibility that we haven't spoken about, right? And this actually is quite interesting, because you talk about something bigger. That my two sides of life, on my work life side, my biggest concern with the world, or my biggest dilemma, is AI, and how AI can be an amazing blessing for humanity, or an amazing risk. And then my personal side, is how I continue to struggle with a relationship that will last forever. Even though, I would say most of my relationships are longer than the average human. And my first relationship was 27 years. But I love that idea of, can we connect so deeply that we stay a long time together, right? And so I combine both of them into something bigger. And, we spoke about this, maybe not today, but, my current work in Emma, in my startup, is basically, can I use artificial intelligence to help people understand those departments where we fail. Falling in love is very easy. We fail at relationships, right? And so we fail at relationships before the relationship even starts, we fail. Because if you don't know yourself well enough, if you don't ask yourself the right questions, if you don't have the right set of skills and the willingness to work and do the work on what you need to improve, by definition, you are doomed to fail before you even start, right? And so I keep, I don't ever think of anything as failure, okay? I think of it as a room for improvement. My last relationship with my wonderful Hannah, again, very close to my heart, always in touch, is this is such a huge blessing, but I wish it had lasted longer. And it is quite interesting because, believe it or not, the reasons why we didn't make it are completely outside our control, okay? But they may have been observable. So those are things that require you to sit down and say, I wish life was different, but what have I learned here? Okay? What have I learned here? That's a very, very interesting process. So, love, my relationship with relationships is something that I'm constantly working on. And, that actually, interestingly, overlaps with my relationship with my spirituality, because I had spent several attempts in my life to become a monk, for a year at a time. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely. It's not for everyone. And I don't go and live in a monastery. I'm a modern day warrior, as I term most of us. I have to be engaged in the real world. But there are parts of monkhood that you can bring into your life. My interesting robes, jeans and black t-shirt, my minimalist approach to things. And one of them is relationships, right? And, so there is always that tug of war, if you want, inside my heart, not my head, around maybe that's an opportunity to, sort of steal another year of that monkhood. Right.
But why do you think you said that you didn't succeed? You tried a couple of times. Why do you think you never did it?
Fully?
Fully.
No, I always had the intention of 1 year at a time.
That was
Yeah. I never really made it to 1 year. There was always a woman that showed up before. But I did 9 months at a point in time, and I think that was my longest, and it's wonderful. By the way, a lot of those practices are actually very misunderstood. So, for example, silent retreats, right? I do a 40 days silent retreat once a year. I don't do them in a monastery. I would be very upset if a monk woke me up at 4 a.m. in the morning to meditate, right? But I do them, and they are the most valuable part of my year. But at the same time, I do a mini silent retreat every other Sunday. So people don't understand that if you need silence, you don't need a 10-day Vipassana. You don't need a 4-day Vipassana. You can have silence once every other week, right? And it's a very simple practice. You go to bed on Saturday night, set your alarm to 3 o'clock, okay?
3 a.m.
3 p.m. And basically don't touch the world until your alarm goes off. So you wake up whenever you wake up on Sunday.
Till the next day, till 3 p.m.
Correct, yeah. And or 5 or 6 or
whatever
7
it is,
or whatever, right? You can basically give yourself. I find that 6 hours in the morning of total silence, proper meditation, proper journaling, calm, quietness, no interruptions, no phone, no social media, no talk, gets you to settle. Gets your brain to be inspired, your heart to be calm. And so a lot of those practices do not have to be in their extreme format to work. You can neuroplasticity will work if you do 4 days of something,
exactly,
or if you do 4 hours multiplied by 30 days.
That is interesting, because a lot of time people just make it so big in terms of, I want to make a silent meditation for a month because everyone is doing. But if you cannot do that, you can do the same in your life. And if you do that small, but many times, it multiplies.
It multiplies even more, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me what other, maybe we're coming to the end, what other practices do you do in your life, like spiritual practices, that is helping you in this journey of happiness?
I, I mean, we can talk about the simple ones. Prayer is very important. I believe in something bigger than you is very important. I believe in the oneness of all of us is very important. These are core and not not avoidable if you ask me. Core in terms of you need to have a position on them. I always I studied Buddhism very deeply. I studied all of them, all spiritual practices that I could get my hands on. And in Buddhism, there is this interesting conversation around emptiness, the idea that there is no objective reality, and accordingly, there is no objective reality to the divine. And I disagree with that, because I believe that there is no objective reality within the physical world, but because we are not, because the divine is not physical, and in other practices would believe that the divine created the physical world, then the rules of the physical world doesn't apply to the divine. Then maybe there is an objective reality that we cannot comprehend. So you cannot say you cannot say he created man in his likeness, for example, because that's something you can comprehend. And each of the spiritual teachings will have a slightly different angle on it. And the point I was trying to make is that Buddhism will say, in that case, we're not a religion. But I say, well, atheism is a religion. Capitalism is a religion, right? When you really think about it, a religion in my mind is three elements. One is a position on the divine, a position on yourself, and a position on others, right? And if you have a position, whatever that is, atheism believes that there is no God, if you want. That's a position. Okay, and so when I say they're unavoidable, those spiritual reflections are unavoidable. I'm not advocating that you end up in the place I ended up, but I'm advocating that everyone needs to at least spend a tiny bit of their life thinking deeply about what could happen post that life. Okay, and maybe what happened pre that life, and maybe why are we here? If based on those findings that life is not just physical. So these are, mandatory practices, I believe, or at least, things that you have to dedicate a tiny part of your life to. Other spiritual practices, I play video games very, very significantly. I do. And I believe that life is a video game. And I believe that the techniques of video games are very, very, very valuable in navigating life. In terms of it being an infinite game, not a finite game, in terms of it being a game of flow and acceptance of the game design, in terms of it being a game of practice. So the more you invest in yourself and so on. Other spiritual practices, I tend to value hunger quite a bit. I find that hunger reminds you of how privileged you are. So you somehow relate to others that don't get to choose when to be hungry.
Wow.
I think that's a very, very powerful practice. I think I tend to value, I don't know if there is a name for it, but you'd have to really tie me down to sit me down in a fancy restaurant. I tend to value real life a lot more. I think that's a very powerful spiritual practice. I tend to talk to everyone. I think that's a very, very deep form of spiritual connection. But I talk to everyone with curiosity, in terms of almost consistently reminding myself of how little I know. I try to be a minimalist. I have a few hobbies that I believe are very spiritual. So I'm a very good carpenter. I build things with my own hands.
So good.
I fix classic cars, believe it or not, as part of my spirituality. So I know all of these things will sound really weird, like my approach to monkhood and so on. But it is the idea of restoring something to its original beauty with a lot of attention and hours and hours and hours and hours of dedication is in itself a spiritual journey. And And the reason I give those weird examples is to say, what people will teach you will be what is right for them, right? What you want is to listen to all of those teachings and then figure out what's right for you. Okay. And if what's right for you is if you're an extrovert, for example, what's right for you might be very, very different than if you're an introvert. And I don't want to dictate to anyone what it is, but think of yourself as 4 parts. You have a mind, you have a heart, you have a body, and you have a spirit. Okay, and if there is any practice whatsoever that you have to conform to, is to connect to all 4 deeply. And in that connection, you need to figure out where they stand and how they can benefit, right? And if you find that a bit of carpentry gets you to slow your mind down, or a bit of hunger gets you to connect a little more to your body and to the suffering of others, then that's your practice.
Yeah. My last guest told me something that was very interesting. He said, a lot of people, they say they are spiritual and they go to the temple, but they don't help someone that's on the street.
100%. Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I think spirituality, if you want. So one of the reasons why we drifted away from spirituality in this world is because of the rise of a religious teaching that's called the scientific method. Okay, and science is a religion. So the scientific method basically tells us that that if something is not observable and measurable repeatedly, it doesn't exist. Okay. While in reality, life is not observable, and measurable in an accurate way. Love definitely exists, but it's not observable with instruments and not measurable repeatedly, and probably varies from person to person. And so, but love exists. And so all of those non-physical elements, the scientific method should have said if something is not observable and measured repeatedly, it's not the concern of science, right? It's the concern of other practices that are spirituality, they are philosophy, sometimes religion, if you get to the core of them, and so on, right? And so basically, because we are not only made of a heart, body, mind, we're also made of a spirit. You can only become complete if you have a connection to that part of you, your soul. Wow. And that requires you to somehow a little bit disconnect from your attachment to your mind, heart, and body. And that's a very, very valuable but not accessible practice for everyone.
Mo Gawdat, what a conversation. I really loved.
We didn't talk about any of the things we planned for. That's great.
That's the beauty.
Yeah,
that's the beauty of life.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of life.
That's how it should
and
be.
Also, it's a sign from somewhere that we need to do a part 2.
Yeah, let's see if people like this, of course. And they do. Yeah.
Mo Gawdat, this was beautiful.
Thank you so
I
much.
really, really, really loved. And thank you so much. I mean, I love, now I'm even more inspired by what I've been following you, but feeling your energy feeling your humility in the way you see life, and also how you are so focused on making a change in the world. It's very inspiring. So thank you so much.
I'm very grateful. Thank you for hosting me. Next time I'll come with more energy. I promise you that. Thank you so much.